Давайте заглянем в будущее.
Let's have a look into the future of energy. It's closer than it seems. Imagine a world where there is sufficient energy for everyone. Gigantic data centers are carrying out trillions of computations per second. Futuristic cities are awash in greenery and scintillating with millions of lights and holograms, whereas AI is managing colossal flows of information. Regions with cheap energy. There are fully automated plants, high-tech facilities producing innovative transport and smart electronics. All productions are tied into one single network with digital infrastructure, whereas the control systems are coordinating the flow of goods and supplies across the world in real time. Underlying all of that is energy. With each step forward, humanity needs more of it. And to break new horizons, we need to carry out a genuine technological breakthrough in extraction, processing and transfer and transportation of resources and energy. What will the energy of tomorrow look like? Conventional resources such as gas, oil and coal will retain their fundamental role. AI will bring control systems together, linking not just sectors, but whole countries. It'll assume control over reliability and precision. It'll prevent any malfunctions before they arise and accelerate each stage of production, whereas the people will assume the key role of managing processes. Unmanned technologies will elevate the safety of extraction and processing of energy resources to a level never seen before. Even in the Arctic and offshore, it'll allow us to decrease and minimize the risks of tapping into the potential of deposits. Innovative technologies will make energy more environmentally friendly. Even now, not only are we capable of preserving the environment where energy facilities are located, but also restore lost ecosystems, because the energy of tomorrow and future is the global network of cooperation and mutual trust. And in that world, Russia is a key player of the world energy transition. Our energy reaches serve as a foundation for launching a global transformation. Not only does Russia have a surplus of energy resources, which is capable of satisfying the needs of countries, it is also open to signing agreements and joining efforts together with global partners. Only by working together will we be able to achieve more. Transformation is already afoot, and it'll continue into tomorrow. Our shared future and a common goal can bring us together. The Russian Energy Week. Together, we shall achieve more. President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies, gentlemen, friends. I welcome all of you at the 8th International Forum, the Russian Energy Week. You are already having a discussion amongst yourselves, and you have a chance to familiarize yourselves with the positions of one another. It is hardly likely that I'll tell you something that you're not aware of, but I'll dwell on certain key points. Certainly, we are pleased to host in Moscow the heads of leading world companies, experts from the industry for a substantive, productive dialogue on developing the energy sector. This dialogue is of particular importance amid dynamic, profound shifts in the global market. And this is precisely this stage that our energy and service companies are at, as well as suppliers and consumers of energy resources and whole countries. In the course of my remarks, I will broach certain major trends of the modern energy sector, and I will certainly share our perspective on the challenges facing the global and the Russian energy sector. The first of which being the recalibration of the world energy connectivity. To a large extent, this recalibration is brought about by objective, natural causes. It's just new centers of economic development are popping up and consumption is growing over there. That's it. But we are also witnessing a deliberate dismantling of the world energy architecture, which is brought about by aggressive and rather pushy actions by certain Western elites. As you're aware, under the political pressure, many European countries have given up Russian energy resources. I pointed out before what this might result in for the European and Western countries themselves, for their economic and production capacities. We are witnessing the fallout of such actions in the EU itself. We see diminishing industrial outputs, rising prices, owing to more expensive oil and gas coming from beyond the ocean, as well as a lower competitiveness of the European goods and the European economy as a whole. According to Eurostat, the industrial output in the Eurozone in July this year is 1.2% lower than the average over 2021, and we see a continued slowdown, a continued decrease of industrial output, and the engine of EU growth, namely Germany in July, it decreased by 6.6% as compared to the average 2021 levels. But I'm not talking about the European problems here. I'm talking about the world energy market at large, which is undergoing a reformatting of supply chains, which has an objective character. We see a reorientation of energy logistics to the global south, the dynamically developing countries of the Asia-Pacific, Africa, and Latin America through more reliable routes with new hubs, new ports that take into account both the current and the future needs of the consumers. And these needs are growing year in, year out, just as the world economy is growing. The pace might be different, but still it's in the positive figures. The world oil demand this year is estimated to stand at 105 million barrels per day. That is 1 million more than last year. The main factors driving the growing consumption include the active development of petrochemistry. It's growing at a pace higher than the GDP growth on average, and the transportation, because even though there are plans to give up internal combustion engines, still these plans are deferred, and for many years to come, cars using petrol are still going to be in use. Yes, there are electric engines, but still you need to get electricity because it does not magically appear in the plug, in the socket. You still need oil or coal or something else to produce this power, this electricity. Russia still retains the position of one of the leading oil producers, despite the malafide competition mechanisms used against us. We account for about 10% of the world oil production. This year we will have produced 510 million tons, which is 1% lower than last year. But I would like to draw attention to the fact that we are doing that in conformity with the OPEC Plus agreements. That is a voluntary cut. The Russian oil sector is working sustainably. It's preparing plans for the future. Our companies not only reliably supply our internal market through developing the processing of oil, but in the light of difficult external environment, they're also showing flexibility. They've managed to foster new channels for supplies and payments. In the past, the export of our oil and oil products mostly was oriented towards one single consumer, namely the EU, but right now the geographic range has expanded significantly. As I pointed out before, Russia is continuing its cooperation as part of OPEC Plus based on our mutual interests, our partners, and we are performing our obligations with a view to rebalancing the world oil market. But this is being done not just for the sake of the producer, but also for the sake of the customer. And the results are already evident. We see the volume of supply in the market as well as the current prices. These parameters fit both the needs of the consumers and the producers. It helps launch investment projects and also creates an environment to ensure predictability in the global economy, and predictability in the world market is probably one of the most important achievements we can boast of. As far as the world gas market is concerned, in that particular regard, the supply chains are shifting as well, and the reasons are objective. We see a steady increase in gas consumption in the Asia-Pacific and the Middle East and in Latin America, whereas in Europe, the gas demand is still at levels lower than 2019 because their industrial output is decreasing, so they don't need as much as they used to. It's as simple as that. So it might seem that the fact that certain European countries have given up Russian gas, the blow-up of Nord Streams, would have severed us from conventional markets and dealt a blow to an important part of our energy sector. And indeed, we have to admit, at first our gas exports decreased somewhat, only to bounce back and start growing. It has not fully recovered, but the direction is evident. The move by the EU has only accelerated the shift in our priorities in favor of more promising, reliable clients. Countries know their interests and they act rationally based on those interests. Our gas companies provide those markets with reliable supplies, just as we have already and always done that in all of other directions and contracts. Together with our partners, we're working to expand the export potential of the Russian gas sector, and I'm not just referring to pipeline gas, but also to LNG supplies. At the same time, we are increasing our internal consumption of gas, which is of the utmost importance, in particular, and gas-based chemistry. There are facilities being built in the Volga region in Siberia, in the Russian Far East. We are also providing better supplies of gas to our settlements and cities. Over the last 5 years, we have built more than 100,000 kilometers of gas distribution networks, thereby propelling our level of gasification to almost 75%, and this level will only grow. To be more precise, the gasification level stands at 74.7% since 2019. It has grown by 6.1 percentage point. We're also continuing with the social gasification program. Over the last 4 years, almost 1 million households have got access to pipeline gas, and we expect the number to grow by another 2 million in future. 1,393,000 plots have been connected to the gas distribution networks. 988,000, almost 989 connections has been performed. And I would also like to point out that Russia has unique sources of gas. We retain high level of production, but we have to work on this resource base and we have to replenish it, including through tight gas. At the beginning of this year, I've instructed the government to draft a special program for the hub of our gas sector, Yamalo-Nenetsky Autonomous District. I would like to ask the colleagues to do that within the time frame defined and to launch this program as soon as possible. A couple of words about the coal sector. Despite negative forecasts by certain experts, coal still holds a significant share in the world energy mix. But there are clear regional distinctions we can observe. Whilst Western markets are decreasing their coal demand, Asian countries are, on the contrary, increasing the consumption of coal. But of course, it all boils down to economic efficiency of coal-based generation. But given the global economic center of gravity shift towards the Asia-Pacific, we can expect the coal market to remain important, significant for decades to come. Just as any market, it can be cyclical, and right now coal producers are facing lower prices But amid these conditions, we are supporting our companies and their staff. We are also helping them with the restructuring of their loans. I would like to ask the government to keep following this situation and help the businesses recalibrate support measures, but the coal industry itself should raise its competitiveness as well as efficiency. Distinguished colleagues, the second major global trend is the growing role of power generation. In the next 25 years, electricity generation is expected to double, and 85% of additional demand is going to come outside the so-called developed economies and the countries of the global south, to be more precise.
Russian power grid is one of the largest in the world. Our generation facilities has a total installed capacity at almost 270 gigawatts. And this tremendous complex is working reliably and without malfunctions. At the same time, we see certain local deficit of electricity, primarily in the regions where major industrial, transportation and logistic projects are underway. We need to cover this gap through development of power grids, updating generation equipment and commissioning new power stations. I'd like to highlight that the costs of energy companies should not be automatically transferred into tariffs to be shouldered by consumers. We need more agile solutions, including regulation novelties, managing demand for electricity, and mechanism of investment support in the fuel and energy sector. I expect that the government will provide us with proposals in this regard that we'll discuss during a separate meeting in the nearest future. I'd like to remind you about tasks to develop the retail market of electricity. Its conditions and tariff rate should be aligned both with the generation companies and consumers, households, organizations and enterprises. I'd like to ask the government to prepare as soon as possible the draft concept of development of competitive retail markets of electricity and capacity. I'd like to repeat it yet again. When there is affordable energy, it will necessarily result in modern production facilities and new economy sectors. It will attract flow of capital, technology and talent. In September, during our meeting in Vladivostok, we discussed the drafting of fuel and energy mix for the Far Eastern Federal District of the Russian Federation. This systemic document considers the best sources of energy for each region, be that coal, gas, fuel, oil, or hydropower. It sets long-term volume for supply of energy in the Far East. I'd like to ask the government to define the hierarchy of the fuel and energy mix documents in the system of strategic documents of the country, and together with colleagues from the regions to prepare such energy mix drafts for all federal districts of Russia, and to use them as foundation to shape a modern system of digital management of energy supply for the regions. This system should consider use of different types of fuel and energy resources, the most efficient for each region of our country. Moving on, I have already mentioned it that the Russian energy mix is one of the greenest in the world, and I'm sure that our Russian colleagues spoke about that. That means that the overwhelming percentage of power in Russia, that is 87%, is produced with minimal or zero carbon footprint. By that, I mean natural gas and nuclear generation, renewables and hydropower. Our companies are implementing the green projects and long-term generation, not only in Russia but abroad as well. For example, Russian scientists, engineers and managers have implemented more than 400 projects in hydropower in 55 countries of the world. Rushydro, that is our leading company in the sphere, is building hydropower plants and water infrastructure by respecting environmental safety regulations and putting in place efficient and sustainable water usage. Impressive experience has been accumulated by our another high-tech leader, that is Rosatom. It owns about 90% of the global NPP market. About 90%. 110 energy units of Russian design have been built around the world. Russia is the only country in the world that has the competences across the whole nuclear chain. And by building abroad, we are not just erecting facilities, but together with our partners, we are creating the future of the energy sector and related sectors of the country. We are shaping a solid national talent pool, scientific and technological foundation for development of whole countries. That is our method when we are building NPPs in Egypt, Bangladesh, and Turkey, and we intend to deepen our cooperation in nuclear power with Global South countries and within BRICS. We're very active in this regard. Experts believe that nuclear energy would become one of the pillars of the future global energy mix. By 2050, the capacity of global NBPs will almost double. Within 15 years, Russia is to commission more than 29 gigawatts of capacity, of nuclear capacity, including small NPPs. And small NPPs is our unique project. Nothing parallels us in the world. Nuclear generation will be installed in the Far East and Siberia. I'd like to highlight that nuclear power has an abiding role in providing consumers that will drastically change and increase in the future. By that I mean electric transportation that we've discussed already, industrial robots, automatic service systems. Electricity appetites of digital economy is on the rise, including artificial intelligence instruments, blockchain, data storage and processing facilities. The energy consumption by data centers in the world is estimated to be comparable with all of the heavy industry. It is apparent that the dimensions that I have just mentioned are powerful development factors. They largely define the global competitive advantage of the countries, efficiency of national economies, and the quality of life of people. And that means that our plans for development of Russian fuel and energy sector should keep these trends in mind, and we try to do that. And I suggest that we supply digital economy and data centers specifically through local generation, power plants where resources are used that the specialists have called locked-in resources. That means that it's expensive to transport and it's too far away. Therefore, it's more efficient to use them in situ, that is, in place where they're produced. I'd like to ask the government to work on proposals to such a model and to work on the use of advanced clean coal generation to provide for the needs of digital infrastructure, data centers and processing centers, and so on. Such facilities situated in the immediate vicinity of our coal-producing regions means modern jobs and diversification of local economy. Friends, moving on to the third feature of the modern energy sector, or rather the challenge that is facing the actors on this global market. By that I mean technological sovereignty of oil, gas, and other energy supplying countries. And I'm sure that you've spoken about that as well during your conference. We've seen how the Western elites overnight refused to service the equipment in Russia for the fuel sector. They officially declared that they will not deliver on their commitments. They have proven yet again that they are unreliable partners and that their actions are directly tied with the political situation. And sometimes this political situation is being used for unsavory competition. We'll see that the commercial companies were forced to do that under the pressure from their ruling elites. Still, it's a cold, hard fact that the Western technologies and equipment for the fuels and energy sector could become unavailable at any moment for geopolitical reasons. Unavailable not only for Russia, but for any other energy supplier that the West considers, someone in the West considers inconvenient competition or simply an uncooperative country. And everyone should keep that in mind. That is the reality of today. But I'm sure you all understand that fully well. That means that we need to actively shift the status of country energy suppliers, shifting from purchasing the equipment toward technological leadership. By shaping a fully fledged energy sovereignty at the national level, starting from production and processing of resources, moving on to the transportation of already produced goods. You know that Russian energy sector has already deployed the process of achieving technological leadership. In essence, that's a powerful engine of the whole Russian industry and science. Our authorities, energy companies, enterprises, and research institutions are working together, discussing these issues and agreeing on specific steps. Actually, it is here, on the margins of the Energy Week, the Coordination Council on Import Substitution in Oil and Gas sector has taken place. You know, what's happening here? I have been talking to our companies. First, initially, I have to admit, we were doing reverse engineering, but quite soon we started to move on from there. You know, sometimes they're meeting with some of their partners in Europe, for example. What's happening there? They have to cut down on their personnel, and our market was one of the main markets where they used to send their high-tech products. They had to abandon our market, meaning that their production becomes cost ineffective. They have to cut down on their personnel. They're losing their technologies. In turn, our specialists are developing technologies, and they're becoming technological leaders, because we can produce homegrown technologies at a cost-effective level. And we're starting to get partners from around the world that are purchasing this equipment from Russian companies now. They used to buy it in Europe. That was yesterday, but today they're buying from Russia. So what did they do? So simply, like in that anecdote, someone buys a ticket just to spite the train driver and does not get on that train later. That is the reality of today. Domestic services are already covering the main demand for boron in Russia. We have increase in manufacturing of production equipment and chemicals. We're introducing our homegrown technological solutions in servicing deposits and infrastructure. Many of the things that I've mentioned before was previously done by foreign companies. Now it is being done by our specialists. Russia has tremendous engineering potential and serious scientific and practical experience in our fuel and energy sector, which has been time-tested, that they have proven their efficiency in harsh climate and inclement weather. We have competence, experience, and best practices in order to achieve progress even in the most complex sector of energy landscape and to recover tight reserves, which is especially important for the oil industry. And we'll be doing that not only independently, but also together with friendly countries that are fully well aware of the geopolitical risks. Russia is providing comprehensive technological cooperation of energy-producing countries free from sanctions and foreign pressure. A true partnership based on exchange of experience, knowledge, creating industrial alliances, and results of such a partnership will benefit everyone who's taking part in that work. You know, as for equipment, I've just spoken about it. And I was talking about nuclear power. And here, Russia is an absolute leader. We're independent from anyone. Everything done in the nuclear energy is fully implemented in Russia. And that will be the case for all types of energy sectors. In oil and gas equipment, the same will happen. Colleagues, business and expert communities are becoming more vocal in their opinion that the world is entering the era of energy realism. Reckless, and I would say irresponsible, steps of some of the Western elites have resulted in the fact that the priority is given not to the modalities of energy transition on comparison of emission volumes from different types of fuel. An ever more abiding and significant role is being played by the very access to fuel and energy, the grids and pipelines in place, and installed capacity of the energy systems. Amid these conditions, it's especially important to efficiently manage recovery and inventories of resources to ensure technological and environmentally friendly development of the industry in order to saturate domestic market, achieve national development goals, and execute on foreign commitments. We have always done that and will continue to do it. That is one of our absolute priorities. Understanding all these tasks and challenges, Russia intends to strengthen its position as the global energy leader and to develop partnership relations in order to build a just and sustainable model of global energy in the interest of the future generations. I hope that the convening of the Russian Energy Week will make its own tremendous contribution to this joint work that we're doing together. I'd like to wish to participants and guests of the forum every success and all the best. I'm sure that already a lot of many useful meetings have already taken place and many discussions have taken place. We're only happy that this is happening. It means that the goal why we're inviting you here to Russia is being achieved. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
you very much, President Putin. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. It is my pleasure to welcome you here at the plenary session of the Russian Energy Week. The topic of this year's forum is Shaping the Energy of the Future Together. Undoubtedly, the Russian fuel and energy complex, despite all the restrictions and sanctions that we're facing, is not just staying strong, but is also actively evolving and is serving as a foundation and abiding glue for development of the industry, IT sector, and serves as a foundation of the Russian economy. All that comes together so that all the goals and objectives are implemented. It is all covered in the energy strategy of Russia up to 2050. So what this sector will look like in 25 years? What are the challenges faced by the industry today? And certainly, what are the new solutions, among other solutions in the digital area, have to be implemented? And those are all the matters that we shall discuss together with the participants of the plenary session. Allow me to introduce them. Mr. Alexander Novak, Deputy Prime Minister